Hey guys, this is Dr. Sutton with MDI Prep. And first of all, today, what I want to kind of talk about is that struggle to get into medical school. And let me just tell you, it can definitely be a struggle. So, what I'm doing today is kind of covering some of the things that have helped me along the way to get into medical school. And I guess the first thing, when you look at the competition for medical school, it is a lot of competition. And most people think you got to have a 4.0 GPA, a 525 on your MCAT, all these community hours, all the shadowing experience. It's not the case. Um, Good MCAT, good GPA, good shadowing. Those are very positive things to have on your resume for medical school. But let me just give you my own personal experience and kind of tell you about my personal journey. So when I thought about medical school, first of all, you got to keep in mind, before medical school, I was a police officer. And I had always had these dreams of going to medical school and being a physician. And I didn't know how to do it. So I just kind of started doing some research and finding out, okay, what do you need to do to get into med school? So after finding out I needed to take the MCAT and I needed these prerequisite classes, I decided that I would have to go back to school to take classes to bring up my GPA because my GPA wasn't the greatest when I graduated from undergrad. And I would need to take a lot of these prereqs that I didn't have. So I spent 2 years working full time and going to school full time just to get the grades that I needed, plus to get the prerequisites that I needed. Well, how in the world could I finance all this, right? Because I needed to apply to school. We know about student loans. Well, the first thing I did was I got student loans. Student loans helped me with my post baccalaureate work. I did that for 2 years at Prairie View, had a real good GPA in those 2 years, but my overall GPA was still not really competitive. It was like a 3.2. So I needed to take the MCAT. Now, everybody recommended in order to take the MCAT, you would need to take a course. So the courses at the time were like Kaplan, Princeton Review. And so I decided that, let me look into it, see how much it's going to cost me. Well, the courses at that time may have been, I don't know, a little bit over $1,000. But to me, for me, I was a father. I was, going to school. I was working, but I could not afford, in my mind, I couldn't afford to take a course. So I heard about this course that they would give you the Kaplan course if you got accepted into this summer program. And so this summer program was at Galveston at UTMB. And the qualifications were, I think you had to have a 3.3 GPA and they had some other requirements. I barely missed the GPA requirement. But what I did was I contacted the program director. I set up a meeting with them. I kind of explained my case, explained what I was trying to do, my situation, everything like that. And I was admitted into that program, which was wonderful. That program allowed me to have a prep course for free. So essentially, now I have this prep course, but here's the problem. I got all this access to the prep course, but keep in mind, I'm still working full time. I'm still taking care of my family. And now I'm trying to study for this prep course. What happened is I didn't really study for the prep. I didn't prep for the MCAT like I needed to because of all of the other commitments. Fast forward this. It's time for me to take my MCAT. I take my MCAT. One of the things I can always say is that I've always had I guess, a unique ability to critically think. And I didn't know that the MCAT was a lot of critical thinking. I thought the MCAT was just, content. You either know it or you don't. So I get to the MCAT. I'm a little nervous because I know I hadn't really studied the content like I needed to. And so as I get ready to study, I start going through the passages and things that they have. And I'm noticing as I go through these passages, I'm like, well, I didn't really need any content for that. The answer's right there in the passage. And so I'm starting to feel pretty good because a lot of the answers that I think I would have, I needed to know the content for was already in the passage. So I ended up taking my MCAT and did well on my MCAT. Well, now it's time to apply for med school. Here comes the money again. Applying the actual interview process for medical school is a lot more expensive than the actual money that you're going to spend on a prep course, the money that you're going to spend on your MCAT. It's way more expensive. I always tell our students the best problem and the worst problem to have is to receive a lot of acceptance or interview to medical schools. Because if you have a lot of interviews, you're going to spend a lot of money just traveling to do these interviews. Well, fast forward, I said, okay, I'm on a budget, so I got to limit the schools that I interview. So I got accepted. I got interviews from at least 10, 12 schools. So I said I was going to just limit my interviews to Texas. And really, if I couldn't drive to the location, I wasn't going to do the interviews. So I interviewed at UTMB in Galveston. I interviewed at UT Houston. I interviewed at UT Southwestern in Dallas. Pretty much anywhere that was within 4 hours, I interviewed. So good news is, obviously, I got accepted into medical school, UT Houston Medical School. Now, I'm in medical school now. Keep in mind, undergrad, I took out some loans. I'm in med school now. I'm thinking, how am I going to pay for med school? My first year of med school, I worked full time. Now, nobody in my medical school knew. The dean didn't know. Nobody knew I was working full time. And I was working full time, and they had just kind of transitioned to where you didn't have to go to class all the time. They would record the classes, and so you could look at the recordings later. So certain classes were mandatory that you had to go to. So what I would do is I would work my full shift, right, in law enforcement, meaning I would work literally all day, and then I would review my medical school, the coursework, in the evenings. And I did this for an entire year. And let me just tell you, it was not easy at all. So one day I was talking to who was our dean of student affairs at the time, and we were on a conversation, and she was just saying, how big it was an adjustment for me to transition from law enforcement into medical school. And I said, yeah, I said, I don't know how it's going to feel when I actually give up law enforcement. So she looked at me and was like, what do you mean when you give up law enforcement? I said, well, I'm still working right now. And it was complete silence. Like she didn't know what in the world I was talking about. And so I explained to her that I was still working because, I still had obligations, for the family and everything. And she said, Anthony, you cannot work and go to medical school. She said, how in the world have you done it, this entire year like this? I said, well, I just did what I had to do. So she said, listen, I need you to go to financial aid because I thought I had exhausted all of my loan amount, any money that I can borrow. So I went over to financial aid and they had some scholarships, they had some grant money, they had some different things that I knew nothing about. And this really is what helped me, I think, in my second and third year of medical school. My fourth year of medical school, I had a friend of mine who was already a physician, and she actually gave me a personal scholarship to help me finish my fourth year of medical school. Now, I say all this to say, one, that we don't travel this journey by ourselves. There are always divine doors that are open. There are also doors that are closed on purpose. And there are reasons that people come into our lives. And for me, I was blessed to have some wonderful people guide me along this process. Now, I got, I guess, three things I want to share with you as some tips to kind of help you prevent the same pitfalls that I may have experienced. This is the first thing: prepare early. If you know in your mind that you already are destined, you want to go to medical school, this is your goal, then my suggestion is start early. I mean, when I say start early, if you're in high school and you know you want to be a physician, Start studying now. Start shadowing. Start following individuals who may be interested in what you're doing. The second thing is put away money now. When I say put away money, just create a budget. I call it your med school budget. And this budget is specifically for you to take your MCAT, to do your interviews, anything that's related to medical school. You need to go ahead, set up a budget, put a savings account, and that in that savings account is your investment fund. What are you investing in? You're investing in you, because the best investment you can ever invest in is you, because that's going to yield the biggest return. Okay. The third thing is network, meaning that anything that's offered, if you see a medical convention that's coming to town, go to it. If you see that the medical school is doing tours, be a part of it. Try to link with someone who's doing what you've done. Network, get your name out there, let people know who you are. Now, I'm gonna just tell you, the medical school journey is not easy. If it was, everybody would do it, but it is rewarding. What you learn, what you experience, the amount of good that you can do for others in the long run will take you a long way. So that is my spiel for today on basically my journey to medical school. Feel free, at any time if you have any questions, let me know. If this content was, good for you, please hit the like and subscribe button. I'll be sharing some other videos on test anxiety. So our next video that I'll be talking to you about is on test anxiety. I would say over 80% of the students that I have worked with over the years who have struggled on the MCAT is not because they're not smart, not because they don't understand the content. It is literally test anxiety. They freak out when it comes to taking the test. So until next time, keep pushing forward and don't quit.